There's just so many things I can look back and think, wow, that really changed how I saw things or changed the direction of my life in some way. Welcome to the Wheel of Fortune tarot card lesson. In this lesson, we'll be reviewing the meaning of the Wheel of Fortune tarot card, where we'll go over the general meaning of this card, and we'll also be doing a tarot analysis, where we'll be using 3 key factors on how to interpret any tarot card without memorizing the meanings, and ultimately empower your intuition. We are all intuitive, so think about intuition like a muscle. The more you use your intuition, the stronger it gets. This video is part of the 22-day tarot challenge, where each day of the challenge we will go over a major arcana tarot card, otherwise known as the Fool's Journey. Sign up at tarotchallenge.mysticmondays.com to get the worksheets to participate in these lessons and join our private community for this free 22-day tarot challenge. But before we get started, let me introduce myself. I'm Grace, and I'm the creator of Mystic Mondays, the artist, author, and founder behind all of the Mystic Mondays decks, the Mystic Mondays app, and all of the Mystic Mondays courses. Over the years, I've had the pleasure of teaching tarot workshops and reading tarot for hundreds of people, having collaborated with brands like Chanel, Macy's, Shopify, Urban Outfitters, and so many more, even reading tarot in the metaverse. But that's enough about me. Let's get back to this tarot lesson. Let's begin this tarot card lesson with the general meaning of the Wheel of Fortune tarot card. The keywords for this card are change, fate, and karma. In astrology, the Wheel of Fortune is associated with the planet Jupiter, a planet of optimism, growth, and opportunity. With Jupiter, you can expect expansion, bringing prosperity and luck through higher learning and philosophy. In numerology, the Wheel of Fortune is associated with the number 10, symbolizing that a cycle is ending, renewal, and full circle. It means you are ready to begin a new chapter of your life, since in numerology, 10s break down to number 1. This carries the same energetics of new beginnings, potential, and opportunities. Knowing the correspondences of the Wheel of Fortune card also gives us a greater understanding of the meaning of this card, as well as the overall energy of this card. If you want to access the tarot card meanings on the go, we also have the Mystic Mondays app for you to access the tarot library, and you can also draw all of the Mystic Mondays cards for the day to give you daily guidance and to be a part of your daily rituals. The Wheel of Fortune is a card of change. When this card pops up, change is going to happen, whether you like it or not. Fate has stepped in and is now calling the shots, moving you into a critical new phase of your life. You may be feeling like things are outside of your control, and they are. You can choose to complain or you can choose to adapt. Change is uncomfortable, and you're being asked to face what makes you uncomfortable. Everything happens for a reason. So have faith that these changes are happening for your highest good, even if this change can feel difficult. Life is full of cycles, and it's impossible to have the good times without the bad times. Contrast is not only necessary, but inevitable. Just because events feel like they're outside of your control doesn't mean you have to take a back seat. Remain active and avoid complacency. Trust that this is exactly where you are meant to be right now. Divine timing is at play here. That's it for the general meaning of the Wheel of Fortune tarot card. Let's move into the next chapter of this lesson, the tarot analysis. For this portion of the lesson, we are going to look at 3 cards from 3 different decks. The Rider Waite Tarot, the Mystic Mondays Tarot, which is my deck that I wrote and illustrated, and the Artist Decoded Tarot. Quick shout out to my podcast, The Graced Podcast, where I often interview other deck creators, artists, authors, and other spiritual wellness experts. For the Wheel of Fortune podcast episode, I interviewed Benabel Wen, where we talked about cycles of life, karma, ancestral healing, and so much more. So go ahead and check out that episode. And on another note, The creators of the Artist Decoded Tarot will be on the Graced podcast as well for an upcoming episode. Okay, so let's get into the tarot analysis where we'll be looking at 3 key factors for how to interpret these tarot cards: color, symbolism, and personal experience. Let's look at color first. So we've got color swatches here next to each card, and I'm a huge color nerd. My background is in graphic design, to be specific, and I love color. I love using color. I use it in all aspects of my life, including my hair and my wardrobe and everything, and including my art. If you're familiar with the Mystic Mondays Tarot, the artwork is highly saturated and on purpose because I do believe color has healing frequency. Also, I feel like color is a really intuitive way to understand and download messages without necessarily knowing all of the meaning behind the symbolism. Depending on the colors, they can also communicate messages through their energy. And with the Rider Waite Tarot, I do feel like with the more muted tones, it does carry more of a serious type of message, especially paired with all the symbolism. In this card, you have a lot of blues in the background, the same color blue, and especially in the Sphinx here. We've got yellow in the corners. I feel like we're seeing a lot of primary colors as well. And then we have the dark gray for the swirling clouds behind these angelic figures with the wings. And of course, in the middle, you can't miss it, is the orange Wheel of Fortune. I always see orange as a color of movement. It's a very active type of color. And paired with this devil figure carrying the Wheel of Fortune, it's also in red. So we've got these really active colors in the forefront of the Wheel of Fortune card, being supported by the cooler tones of the blue with the active yellow in each of the corners, like drawing our eyes here to the corners of the card. Very symmetrical throughout, so I feel like it's drawing our eyes in all sorts of directions, but certainly to the corners and the center of the wheel. But in general, this card is very, very symmetrical. Also looks like a compass when I draw all the lines out like that, which definitely relate to the Wheel of Fortune for the Mystic Mondays too. So we have this sunburst effect going through the Wheel of Fortune. I feel like for me, this card is all about change, all about movement, and how to depict that through easy illustration, meaning I wanted the shapes to be very simple so that someone who didn't know tarot could understand what the card meant without necessarily knowing all the meaning behind it. But there is a sense of movement here, especially with all the different angles, all the gradients being present, how the change in gradient, the transition between gradient can almost seem unexpected. So in here, it shifts from light to dark going in this direction, and then it shifts from another color from orange to purple in this direction, and it's shifting in this direction. So I feel like that also speaks to the Wheel of Fortune, where like things can just feel a little bit unexpected with the shifts and transitions that are happening in one's life. So orange, very active color, like I've mentioned, to purple, which I always think of purple as a really spiritual color, as a color related to your third eye and your crown chakra. And also purple is often associated with royalty. So up-leveling through these cycles of change by learning lessons, essentially. And then we've got many, many, many different colors and tones in the Artist Decoded Tarot. So we've got this yellow here, which looks like is a dragon or lion. We've got these like wings, and there's like different tones of color in the wings. We've got active reds and greens. There's just a lot going on, and definitely on purpose, because I was reading the guidebook of this tarot deck, and one of the first things it says is the art of letting go. And it talks about the Wheel of Fortune being a metaphysical palindrome where you can't necessarily tell where one end begins and where the end ends. And I think that's interesting because the wheel itself is, there's definitely like a spiral here. You can't necessarily tell where it starts and begins, But this card is definitely, it's not necessarily like symmetrical in the same way like the other Wheel of Fortunes are depicted. So it kind of makes you think, it just makes you think about the cycles of change and also everything that we store in our memory within these cycles of change too. And of course, we have this black backdrop here, which I think helps support all the colors to pop and also can also represent like the galaxy and the universe and this Wheel of Fortune present in this universe. All right, let's move into symbolism. So obviously, because this is the Wheel of Fortune card, we do have the Wheel of Fortune at the center of the card for all three of these cards. The Wheel of Fortune can often represent luck, karma, change, fortune, and destiny. There's a certain part at play with the universe helping guide us to our next chapter of our lives or changing something so that we reach our full potential, almost as if there is a divine plan in place for all of us. There is a Sphinx here at the top of the Wheel of Fortune in the Rider Waite, which often represents wisdom and mystery. Often when we are within our situations, we can't really see the bigger picture. And so the Sphinx can indicate that there is a larger plan in place, often that we can't see, but they can see. We've got 4 evangelists in the top corners here representing different zodiac signs. In the top left, we have Aquarius representing the human. We have in the top right, the eagle representing Scorpio. On the bottom right, we have Leo as the lion. And on the bottom left, we have Taurus as the bull. These zodiac signs can represent various things, but I think most of all that they can provide some stability and support while going through these cycles of change. So earlier I said this looked like a devil figure. This is actually Anubis, who is an Egyptian god, specifically the Egyptian god of the afterlife, which sounds kind of scary, but I think in this case, it's very much a sign of protection in cycles of change. And then we have the snake here, which also represents life and death and cycles of rebirth. And we have these swirling clouds here, which can also indicate, change is here. And overall, there's just a lot going on in this card. But like I said earlier, this card actually feels really symmetrical and pretty even. So even in the midst of change, there is order in chaos. With the Mystic Mondays Tarot, I very much intended for this to be a very simple deck in terms of illustration, because I know for many people, including myself, I definitely got intimidated by the tarot because of all the different symbols and whatnot. So I really wanted people to be able to understand what the cards meant by on purpose having very simple illustrations, as much as I could anyway, while still maintaining the integrity of the meaning of the cards. So this card is pretty much a Wheel of Fortune. I think a lot of the meaning is depicted through color. Like I said, I feel like there's a certain tension here between the different colors present. And it's kind of like a variation on pretty primary colors like red and blue. And then the mixture of red and blue tends to be purple. So it kind of ebbs and flows with each other in terms of color. And then at the core of it, there is this little transparent circle here that's present. And I feel like in the eye of a storm, you can still remain calm and centered within yourself and turn inward when going through change. Because you can't really change what's going on outside of you. There's so much going on outside of us all the time, but we can remain centered within ourselves. And that is what we can control. The Artist Decoded Tarot does talk a lot about the cyclical nature of life, time, and space, and how I think in the concept of the universe and space, there's no beginning and end. It's just this large spiral going on and on and on. History tends to repeat itself. we might be living in one universe and there's a multiple parallel universe happening at the same time. I very much get that vibe with this card. I feel like even the way these spokes or, these sections of the wheel are illustrated, there's like a story within a story within a story, Definitely reminds me of the Akashic records, of just storing like everything that's happening in the universe at all times. I also get a sense of like divine protection here with these angel wings. Like we're all protected here. I guess if this isn't a dragon, I suppose this could also be a serpent, which relates back to this serpent here in the Rider Waite with the cycles of rebirth and death. Is that a serpent or a dragon? Let me know in the comments. But yes, I'm definitely getting like some galactic energy from this card for sure. All right, so let's move on to personal experience. But before we move on to personal experience, let me talk about 10, the number 10, because the Wheel of Fortune is associated with the number 10. And in numerology, 10 breaks down into 1 because 1 plus 0 equals 1. And I mention that because I'm about to mention in my personal experience story that it happened to be my 1 year when I launched the Mystic Mondays Kickstarter for the tarot deck. And I do consider that year to be very pivotal because if I hadn't launched that Kickstarter, I wouldn't even be recording this video right now and doing this analysis of the Wheel of Fortune card. But I think back to that experience because that changed a lot of things for me. I essentially created a product and a business by accident because if you make a product, you then start selling things and then you, I suppose, start a business by proxy. And I think it was probably like the first time I ever created a product in that manner. And then for it to be supported on Kickstarter kind of gave me the confidence like, yeah, I can do this, or I can do something like this, or it just then gave me the experience that I can then, perhaps create another deck or perhaps do another Kickstarter. But a lot of things happened that year, like some good fortune things where we did a collaboration and I sent them a version of the Mystic Mondays Tarot that I think a lot of people had received through the Goddess Provisions box. So they got to experience the tarot deck. And I was still fairly new. I was still a Kickstarter deck. And I think at the time, it wasn't even out yet for Kickstarter backers, but they happened to be able to produce it faster, which is why they got that version of the deck first, which was unplanned. So a lot of things also happened that I just had never done before. So all of it was very new. I think another thing that happened that was pretty cool was I happened to also be able to do a solo show at Urban Outfitters. They had a space in LA called Space 1520 at the time. I think they're using it for different purposes now, but at the time it was like an event space. And I got to do a solo show there. So that was really cool, and host different workshops throughout the time that my artwork was up on display. But some other things happened that I think were very Wheel of Fortune-esque as well. Like most of my Kickstarter decks actually got damaged during the shipping process. The cards would scratch as it shipped out. And because of that, many of the decks happened to get scratched, which was something I totally did not foresee. Felt like a tower moment, but now I'm actually understanding it also had elements of being a Wheel of Fortune moment also, because had that not happened, I wouldn't have cold emailed a publisher, and I only cold emailed one publisher. And the reason why it was that publisher was because at my college, they really promoted this graphic design internship at Chronicle Books, and it was a really highly revered internship. And so I really only had that publisher in mind because they had a good reputation in my mind of having this really cool illustration internship. So I emailed them at their generic email, hello@chroniclebooks.com or something like that. It might not have even been their email. It might have just been the generic form on their website. So I wasn't even really expecting a response, but after spending weeks checking boxes and boxes of decks to see if they were scratched or not, led me to a point where I was I need help in some way. So I cold emailed them and I got a response a week later. I sent them a sample deck. And then the rest was history. They sent me a contract, publishing deal. I happened to sign with a literary agent like pretty quickly as well. Like it happened really fast. All of that felt very like Wheel of Fortune-esque. And I don't think that would have happened had I not experienced what felt like a setback by most of my stock getting damaged to then cold emailing a publisher and getting a publishing deal. If my decks did not get damaged, I probably would have kept self-publishing, but it seems like the universe had other plans for me and for the Mystic Mondays tarot deck. And that is why I often like to say that this tarot deck really wanted to be out there in the world, and quickly, because it published the very same year that I got the publishing deal, which is really unusual in publishing. It can take years for a book, a deck, a game, a puzzle, or whatever to actually get through the publishing process. But it happened very quickly, and I think it actually took like 7 months or so for me to land the publishing deal and for it to then be out there in the world. So that's really quick in the publishing industry. And that to me was like, oh, the Mystic Mondays Tarot really wants to be out there in the world, making a splash all on her own. So what about you? Have you had any Wheel of Fortune experiences that have completely shifted and altered your life in some way? I'd love to hear in the comments or in our private community. Definitely use the worksheets to your advantage, which is available inside our free 22-day tarot challenge. There are many things that come up when I think about a life-altering experience, like moving cross-country and getting my first job out of college, or even landing my internship in New York. Like there's just so many things I can look back and think like, wow, that really changed like how I saw things or changed the direction of my life in some way. And then this Kickstarter was basically the birth of Mystic Mondays and evolved into what it is now. So thank you for being here. If you have been along with me on this journey, it's been quite a journey. And definitely when I look back, the Kickstarter was one of my Wheel of Fortune moments. I'd love to hear about you and your experience also. All right, that is it for the Wheel of Fortune tarot card lesson. If you liked this episode, remember to like, subscribe, and comment so that more tarot lovers and learners can join us on the Fool's Journey. If you want to dive deeper with this card, you can listen to the Wheel of Fortune meditation, which is on our YouTube channel, the Mystic Mondays YouTube, with full extended meditations inside our Coven membership portal. And just so you know, each tarot card also has its own collection where you can shop your favorite tarot cards on the Mystic Mondays site. So if you are feeling super connected to the card, we do have Wheel of Fortune merch on the Mystic Mondays website for you to shop right now, like the shirt that I'm wearing. And if you use code Wheel of Fortune, you can get 10% off any item in the Wheel of Fortune collection. Thanks for being here. Sending you so much magic today and every day. See you in the next lesson.